Such an honor to be here. It is such an honor to be asked to speak in front of you. Before I get to the speech that I've planned, I do want to take a bit of a time to explain to you about, sorry, there is a bit of an echo here, but I'm going to try to deal with it. I want to tell you about why I'm here, who I am, and a bit of a personal story. I'm not MAGA. I have never voted for Donald Trump. In fact, in 2016, when he won, I cried. And it wasn't tears of joy. I was upset that Donald Trump won in 2016. Now, I come from California. I live in Los Angeles. My mother and my grandmother, my mom, Wine, live in Westminster, which is a very Republican area. My mom's side of the family has always been Republican. They're big Trump supporters. When Donald Trump won in 2016, I started to notice that the mainstream media said things that didn't really align with my personal experience. They said all Trump supporters were white, that they were racists, that they didn't understand refugees or immigrants. And I sat there and I thought, well, in my family, my white side, my Danish, Irish, American white family from Idaho are Democrats. And my Vietnamese refugee family living in blue state California are Republicans and big supporters of Donald Trump. So already I was starting to realize the mainstream media was lying to me. I knew from my personal experience they were lying to me. And I'm very ashamed to say that I was so, at that point in my career, I hadn't started into my independent broadcasting for news. I was a radio talk show host at that time, and I didn't talk politics. So I think there can be some excuse there. For those of us that, we're living our lives, there's many people out there living their lives, they're not paying attention to politics, they're just reading the headlines, they're gobbling up what the mainstream media tells them, and that's all they have. And I was one of those people. But it was after 2016, when the narrative wasn't aligning, that I just thought, wait a minute, what are they saying? And then I'm the type of person, they would say, Trump said this, Trump said that. And I would go and I would watch the video of where Trump said this thing. And of course, I'm not the type to just watch the clip, I want to find the whole thing. And I would find the whole thing, and what did I find? They lied to me. He didn't say the thing they said he said, the racist comment. They took it out of context, and they kept doing this over and over again. But at that time, I was still in the mainstream media brainwash vacuum. And I'm ashamed to say that Thanksgiving that year, in 2016, right after Trump had won, I had run my own mother out of my house for voting for Trump, for being a Trump supporter. She wore a MAGA hat, and I just was so upset that she voted for Trump. Time has gone on, and as I especially launched my independent media and into politics in 2019, I started to see more and more and more of how the mainstream media was just a bunch of liars, which is really why I ended up starting my own channel, and when I did, I was really nervous. I thought, oh my gosh, my views are now so different than anything I'm seeing on mainstream media. I don't know how I'm going to be received. I don't think I'm left. I don't think I'm right. I don't know what I am. I was very confused. But I also just thought, but nobody's saying the things I'm saying, and maybe if I say these things, people will listen and say, yeah, I agree, maybe. Or maybe they'll just think I'm crazy and run me out. And luckily, when I started speaking up and saying, we're being lied to, and these are the things that they're lying to you about in the mainstream media, and I'm going to correct the record, this is the truth. More and more people started to watch. More and more people said, yes, that's right, that's right. So now, fast forward, and the reason I accepted to come here and speak, I said to David and Michael when they asked, I said, I'm not MAGA, right? I mean, you guys know, I'm friendly with MAGA, I support MAGA, I support Donald Trump, especially he's clearly heavily politically persecuted. This is a dystopian nightmare we're living in. We're losing our freedom. And they said, this is about join to save America. Anybody who wants to join to save America is welcome here. What does that mean, save America? That's what we're here to do, right? This isn't just about supporting Donald Trump or getting together in an echo chamber or in our political camps that we live in. This is about saving America. What does that mean? Well, we want to save America from the collapse of freedom. We want to save America from the type of event that happened yesterday. Now, the worst thing about what happened yesterday, besides people being shot and killed, which is absolutely horrific, and we feel enormous sympathy for those who've been injured, those who were killed, and Donald Trump, who was injured. And we're still trying to figure out exactly what happened there. I've seen pictures of a potential bullet to the chest, but he was wearing a bulletproof vest. I don't know if that's, still have to fact check it, but seeing these, we're getting a lot of information right now. But the worst thing about yesterday is that none of us were surprised. What does that say for where we're at as a country? That none of us were surprised. A former president, the leading candidate in the presidential race, the likely next president of the United States, was shot, and none of us were surprised. That means we've already lost the country, and now it does need saving. It needs saving. We're no longer a people in control of the government is in control of us. And that is what we're trying to fix. That is what needs to be changed. We need to preserve freedom in this country. We have to preserve that freedom. And him being shot, and none of us being surprised, just makes me wonder, are we already living in the banana republic that we worry that we're reeling into? Are we already there? Now there's, again, a lot of questions about what exactly happened yesterday. Who the shooter, what his motivations were. Was he just a fringe radical that, wasn't a part of any group? Was there a greater conspiracy there? We're still getting all that information. There's a lot of questions. What happened with the Secret Service? They had a clear eye on the guy. There were people pointing to the roof saying the guy was right there. He had a gun, and yet Secret Service allowed that many shots, the president to get hit, people to be killed before they took out the guy. I mean, there's a lot of questions. I get it, there are a lot of questions. One question is, was the guy there's some that say no, it wasn't a conspiracy, Secret Service did their job, everything was fine, but this guy was just indoctrinated. But whichever way it was, it's bad, right? I mean, if he was indoctrinated because he's listening to rhetoric, the rhetoric of the Democrats constantly saying, this is the most dangerous moment in our history. This man is going to destroy America, as they systematically destroy every ounce of democracy we have in this country. They sit there and they gaslight us. They tell us Donald Trump and the MAGA movement, that you here in this crowd are the threat to democracy. That's what they're telling all of us. But in reality, they have done everything they possibly can to undermine democracy. Do you remember Russiagate? They started off, right? The minute Trump got into office, it was Russia. Russia did it. They've infiltrated. People can't possibly like Donald Trump, especially these minorities. They don't. You guys must be, somehow brainwashed by Russia. They spent millions and millions of dollars. They spent millions of dollars on investigating, a sham investigation, going down paths, investigating some dossier that now we find out Hillary Clinton's campaign was behind. I mean, then they go on and they impeach him twice. Ukraine, they said, this is like the comical stuff now, especially when we find out more about Biden and his family and the connections to Ukraine. And they sit there and they try to tell us, it was Trump. He was doing some nefarious stuff with Ukraine, so we have to impeach him. And then they say January 6th, he was doing an insurrection, even though he stood there and obviously said, but they edited it, because that's what mainstream media does. He obviously said, we're going to peacefully protest. And they edit that out, and they try to tell us, inciting a riot, inciting an insurrection. They then have done a laundry list. I can't even name all of the lawsuits that they've now engaged in against Donald Trump. Endless lawsuits, from tax evasion to hush money, which, you know, the one that he was just convicted of for a felony, where was the crime? Somebody explained to us what the crime actually was. They still can't. They said, well, no, there was a crime, just trust us. Oh yeah, trust you. We'll trust you that there was that crime that you can't even fully articulate. They're going after him for classified documents. They've done numerous House investigations, congressional House investigations. And you know what they do with those? They've now imprisoned people. You've got people sitting in jail right now because of these House investigations. They went on these sham investigations, spending, again, millions of our taxpayer dollars to do them, and then they throw the political dissidents into jail, saying that, well, it was for what? What's the crime? Contempt of Congress, they say. Not respecting us. Well, Congress doesn't respect us, the American people. They're the most useless branch of government. They don't do anything. No offense to you, English. But you guys get in there and do something, make change, okay? Actually start doing something. So of course, after they've gone after him, and then they try to rip him off the ballots. I mean, that was the most egregious attack on our democracy, to try to take that choice away from us. So many of us who have never voted for Donald Trump have reached a point where we say, I think this time I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna vote for Donald Trump. And there's so many people who have that feeling because they see what is going on in this country. They see the political persecution. They're seeing, and that's what's important here. I stand here today as an independent. I am a political independent, and we're in the majority. And you, the MAGA movement, have been nothing but kind. Unlike, by the way, the other side. The other side is me. You say, oh, I'm an independent. How dare you? You might vote Republican? What do you think? Oh, you are the worst. And they call us all kinds of names. But the MAGA movement has always been warm and welcoming and accepting, and very much wanting to bring people in to seeing the truth of what's actually happening, the gaslighting that's happening. And you guys are the real fighters. I mean, you're the ones that, it's incredible. It's incredible. You've lost family members. I mean, look what I did to my own mother. I mean, you've lost family members, you've lost friends, you've lost your jobs, you've lost your status in communities, all because you stood strong for something you believe in. That's amazing. You are the real fighters in this country. You've stood up against all odds. There is no other group, political group that I can think of, no other major political group that is this persecuted, this demonized, turned into pariahs of society. And yet, you've stood strong. And you've shown that this is the way forward. We have to stay strong, we have to stay together. We have to bring people in, we have to get people to start waking up and seeing the truth and not being gaslit anymore by the mainstream media. Because they lie. And all the politicians are lying too. Except those of you in the room that are politicians. So of course, we leap then when we see Donald Trump standing on stage yesterday and getting shot. Why wouldn't we think that there was something sinister behind that? Why wouldn't we think it was more than just some, radical fringe person? Why wouldn't we start to ask those questions? They've done every single thing they can to get rid of the guy. This was literally the last thing. This was it. They couldn't do anything else. They tried impeaching him. They tried all the legal lawsuits. They made him a felony, and then they tried that in mainstream media. Felony, Donald Trump. Felony, felon. He's a felon. They kept saying that. And guess what? Nobody cared. Because we see through it, right? We already know. So then they thought, well, what's the next step? What's the last thing to do is to take the guy out. And that is why so many of us wonder and question, and I think it's a fair question to ask. But we, of course, are still getting a lot more information. But either way, whether it was something along those lines that would be just the next step, logical step in everything they've tried to do, or if it was just this guy that was radicalized and angry or whatever, Where did the rhetoric come from? You know, we just had Biden, what, 5 days ago or something? He said, it's time to put Trump in the crosshairs. Did you hear about this comment he made? He says, it's time to put Trump in the crosshairs. Could you imagine if Donald Trump had said that about Joe Biden? I mean, the mainstream media would have had a field day with that. Oh, he called for the assassination of his political opponent. But we didn't hear a word about it. Nothing was said in the mainstream media, and then here's Trump getting shot. Was it the rhetoric? Was it the demonization of if he comes into power, that's the end of the country? Or was it something more sinister, another plot to try to get rid of him after everything they've tried to do? The thing that we're fighting for, what we're trying to do, why are we saving America? It's not just from the mainstream media or the crooked politicians, the establishment. It's about freedom. It's about preserving our freedom, right? That's what we want to save. I mean, what's a country worth saving if it's a crap country? If it has values that nobody cares about. But the thing is that America has values we care about, right? We like those values. We want that freedom. And we want to preserve that freedom, and that's why it's worth fighting for. That's why it's worth saving. That's why we're joining to save America. Freedom is our shared value. Freedom is the backbone of American culture. It is the shared value we all hold, no matter where we come from. So whether we come from Vietnam, we come from Europe, we come from Africa, Asia, the Middle East, anywhere, the reason people pack up their bags, imagine, many of you don't have to imagine, many of you have this experience, but a person that packs up whatever they can carry and leaves everything they've known, their home, you have an affinity for your home. You look in the sky, you look at the mountains or the plains, you see the water, you see all of these things that you grew up with, and you love the landscape. You love the sky and the stars that you were born under and raised under, and your childhood friends and your neighborhoods and the places you go eat and everything you've ever known. Now imagine leaving all of that behind. Why would you do that? Why would you pack up and leave all of that behind to go to some strange place where you don't know anybody, you don't know anything, because you're in pursuit of freedom. The freedom to live, the freedom to prosper, the freedom of opportunity, all of those freedoms. That's what unites every last person who comes to this country, whether they come from Europe, like my family did around World War I, they came from Denmark on my dad's side, or my mother who came here in 1975. That freedom is what all Americans, no matter our color, our religion, our ethnic origin, our country of origin, that is what unites us. It's that freedom, and we have to preserve that, we have to hold on to that. I want to share with you just a little bit of my grandmother's journey, because nobody, in my opinion, knows the value of freedom and fighting for it more than my grandmother, my bao line. She was born in North Vietnam and lived in North Vietnam, and when the French War happened, she ended up escaping and took very little with her and had to escape to the South. She went to the South, and you know the story. Many of you share that same story of then needing to leave the South. My family was one of the last to get out in April of 1975. They did the long journey. They went to the Philippines and to Guam and to Hawaii and to Camp Pendleton before they finally were resettled into Boise, Idaho. Why Boise? Because there were nice conservative families that were sponsoring Vietnamese refugees. Then it's some side story here, but they ended up in Iran. they came to America, but then did a side trek over to Iran. And they were in Iran for a couple of years until the fall in 1978, and had to escape out of Iran with the help of a U.S. Senator, Frank Church, who had to help get them out because my older cousin happened to be born in Iran. But she was Vietnamese and American, like me, half. But it didn't matter. Iran said she's an Iranian. She was born here. and they wouldn't let her go. She was an infant at the time. She was born in 1978. So my family had to hustle, and as they were being evacuated out of Iran, they had to get the help of the US government to evacuate my cousin as well, and they were able to do it. I was the first one born in America in my family. But my grandmother, having escaped tyranny 3 times, and she's still alive today. She's in her 90s, living in Westminster, California. And so I was always taught as a kid, you just never know. You never know when something's going to happen, when your government's going to be taken over, when your country's going to fall. You can never take it for granted. You have to fight for that freedom. You have to fight for your country. You can't ever get lazy or relaxed. And I think a lot of Americans that were born here many generations, they don't know, they don't understand that, they don't have that intimate experience of needing to flee. They take it for granted, they don't understand. But we understand, and many people are starting to understand, because they're starting to wake up to the fact that their freedom is at risk, and that they have to fight for it if they want to preserve it. You can't take it for granted. You cannot take it for granted. So, what can we do? Well, knowing is the first step. Many of you do know, so that's always really great. Understanding who's doing it and why. Understanding also that one thing I've learned while they've done this lying to us and gaslighting is that they also, you might not know this as much, but they do it to the Democrats. They do it to the left too. They don't just do it to the right, they do it to them. I mean, look what they're doing in their Democratic election right now. They're trying to get, the powers that be are getting rid of Joe Biden, and then they're going to put in, the elites are going to get together and they're going to decide who's going to be the Democratic candidate. They're not letting the people decide because they have no respect. They have total disdain for the people. They don't trust them. They think they're going to elect somebody like Donald Trump on the Democratic side. They're afraid of that because it will happen. That is exactly what is about to happen on that side. They're starting to realize and wake up and get fed up. So we have to know that there is this group of people who love the power, they want to maintain that power, and they're trying to divide us. And I stand here as an independent in front of you today to say we have to unite, we have to stay together, we have to open our arms to anybody and everybody, even if they're the gaslit person chasing you out on Thanksgiving Day. Remember that they can change, their mind can change. They can one day stand here in front of you embracing this entire movement, saying, this is the group of fighters. This is the movement. So we gotta unite together. We gotta get involved. We have to vote. And we have to not fall prey to the divisions that they sow. We have to keep our eyes laser focused on the real enemy. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for listening and accepting me and loving me, and I love you. Thank you guys all so much. Keep fighting. Keep fighting. Fight, fight, fight.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen show. That's right, this is just a clip. If you want the full show, you can go to KimIversonShow.com and you can watch Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for about 1 hour. It's totally free. Check it out, KimIversonShow.com. Thanks for watching.